The future of the business world and the future of our country were all born after the year 2000. This means they don't know a world with no internet. They don't know a world with no social media. On top of that, the floodgates of technology have been opened. There is no putting artificial intelligence and automated machine learning back into the box. What does that mean for the rest of us? Well, you're gonna need to tune in to find out. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children 18 plus. You are tuned in to the Loan Officer Podcast with me, Dustin Owen, and a very special guest, originally from the UP in Michigan. He is a Wolverine who got his PhD in Madison. Go Badgers. He started his academic career as a scholar at the University of Iowa, and today he is the Dean of Students at the second largest public university in the country, my alma mater, University of Central Florida. Go Knights, charge on. He is the one, the only Dr. Paul Jarley. Dean Jarley, welcome to the Loan Officer Podcast.
Happy to be here, Dustin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Apologize for the obnoxious intro, but I at least gave you a fair warning, right?
At least you got the right shirt on.
I do have the right shirt on. Yeah, I was getting dressed this morning.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out, okay, do I come in as like business executive, right? Got my blazer and my button down, or do I come as the try-hard dad? I came as try-hard dad.
Well, we can ask the audience. Is that?
Oh, they'll tell you, try-hard dad, right? Yes, I came as a try-hard dad. Hey, that was my look. I had two looks to choose from.
You don't have the dad hat on.
I don't have the dad hat on, but I will throw on that flat bill in a heartbeat, and then that like takes the try-hard to a whole nother level, right? So no, we are live. We are recording live at the Exchange, College of Business, UCF. We do this every single semester. It's one of my favorite days of the year. And I'm so fortunate it's days because I get to do it twice, right? There's a fall semester and a spring semester. And I'm fortunate that you and I get to connect and you're the guest today, because who better to ask questions about the future of business than the Dean of the College of Business? Who better to ask about the future? I want to talk about the future leaders of the business world, the future leaders of our country, besides the guy who helps lead the faculty who is investing in these future leaders. So that's what I'm hoping you and I can chat about today.
That'd be great.
And I don't know where you want to start. I think I have an idea of where I want to start, because at some point, let's jump on this hand grenade called artificial intelligence. Okay. What are you foreseeing artificial intelligence does to our world as we know it? And what would you compare it to?
Well, let's start out with just technology generally. Okay.
You're talking like fax machines technology?
Well, over time.
Okay, perfect.
Right? At different points in time, different kinds of technologies. I think there's a couple of things history shows us there. One is opposing technology is never really a good idea.
Yes.
This goes all the way back to the Luddites in England involving mechanized looms. They threatened to blow them up. It didn't end well for them. Let's just leave it there. So it's never really about opposing technology. Then I would say technology can either be a complement or a substitute. Okay? So it can either replace you or it can increase your impact. And frankly, the technology is usually neutral about that. Technology is neither good or bad. It doesn't really think in those terms. The third thing I would say is that once people play with technology, they end up using it in ways that people didn't really expect when they start out. And so when we talk about things like artificial intelligence, you have to understand we're talking about a lot of different things. So some things have been around in artificial intelligence for a very long time.
What is very long? 20 years?
Oh, even farther back than that.
Wow.
Rudimentary applications, yes. But today, when most people hear artificial intelligence, they think large language models, they think ChatGPT, right? And so last year, about this time, I had Jim Adamczyk in here, okay? Jim is the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives for Fairwinds.
And Fairwinds is one of the largest credit unions in the country.
And the sponsor of the exchange.
Headquartered in Orlando, Florida, and the sponsor of the exchange.
Yeah. So maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks before this, I had a couple of emails from faculty being very concerned about ChatGPT. Okay. And they were essentially saying, they're cheaters, right? They're using ChatGPT to get around my tests and whatnot. And so that was kind of on my mind a little bit. And so I asked Jim about what he thought about ChatGPT, and he said, I use it every day. He said, I use it every day in order to help formulate what our strategy is going to be. I can't get enough of it. Okay? This is why I talk to people. This is why you should talk to people. Because in 5 minutes, I went from, we need to figure out how we're going to limit this thing, right? To, we need to figure out how to make sure students know how to use this thing.
Correct. Yes. 100%.
Right? I mean, and it was one conversation in here in 4 minutes.
And if you use it, here's what I've found as a practitioner. It's the best assistant, but it's an assistant.
Yes.
It is a tool that I use. It's a collaborator, but I still have to give it direction.
So that is the classic example, right, of it being a complement to you, not a substitute for you. So in new technologies like this, the marketing is always ahead of the reality. And
you mean sizzle without substance.
All the time. And people are losing their minds, right? So the first thing you need to understand is that ChatGPT and every artificial intelligence product out there right now doesn't know anything that a human doesn't already know. It does not create new knowledge. Not yet. Anyway, ChatGPT 7.5 might, and then the cyborgs are coming, and that's a whole different story. But it is merely an aggregator of information that it already has access to. Okay? And sometimes it gets that really wrong. So the first time we had someone doing a demonstration, they typed in my name, and ChatGPT, in creating a biography for me, essentially said I had already retired. This was news to me. I called the university HR to ask them whether I was still being paid or not. Right? So while it's a tool, it's not an infallible tool. Your assistant is not infallible. That's the first thing you need to know, right? Secondly, it can be a really great first draft of something. When I tend to use it, like I've asked it questions like, what do people think about the College of Business at UCF? Right? And it'll scan a bunch of things and it'll give me a summary. I had it write a strategic plan just for fun. And what I would say about those products, and I would look at them and I would say, well, that's not half bad. That's not a bad start. I have yet to ask it something where I thought it produced a really awesome, insightful answer. Okay? So it's going to beat ordinary, or to your point, people that suck. I don't think it's going to beat people who are really great. Not yet. Anyway. Can it be used as a device to help save you time? Yes, that's clearly true. And another thing that's always the case about technology is it has differential impacts depending upon what it is you do. Okay, so if you're somebody who's a writer who's doing like basic communication kind of work, I would worry about that. Quite honestly. Yeah. If you are an executive in certain settings, this is really terrific. But even there, you got to be careful, right? Because one thing people hate is inauthenticity.
Facts.
Right?
Yes.
And so there's been some backlashes, like some university presidents have asked ChatGPT to write like letters to students about, the conflict in Gaza and how they should respond. And when they find out that was from ChatGPT, that doesn't end well, right? So there's a lot of limitations yet around this, I think. Who knows where it'll go? I'd be willing to bet that in 5 years it won't be used in quite the same way that we thought it would be used, quite honestly. For the engineers in the room, there's something called Moore's Law. This won't improve linearly. It'll improve exponentially. That'll happen, okay? So I think one of the funniest things in my mind is one of the things ChatGPT is really great at is writing code. So the people who created ChatGPT created an instrument that's probably going to run them out of business.
Interesting.
In the sense that I remember Mark Cuban a number of years ago said, don't go into computer science. Computers are going to be able to code themselves pretty soon. I think we're starting to see that. Now, it'll write average code. Will it write great code? Well, that's a different thing, right? But it will no doubt replace a lot of those functions and people at lower levels. That always happens.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing
is not to be there.
Yeah, correct. And what I'm hearing really it's here.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. Yep. So we need to embrace it, but there's a lot we don't know. And whatever we think we know, let's stop thinking, because we really don't know, and it'll present itself, and humans will start to learn to use it ways that maybe even the intended architects never thought humans would use it in that manner. How about this? Let's go ahead and switch gears. And I'm looking out amongst the room. There's about 100 College of Business students listening in as we record this. So we're recording this on a Wednesday. This will more than likely drop by next Tuesday. That's when you can find it on Spotify or Apple or even up on our YouTube channel. And I look at this audience, and maybe if we have some time, we can take questions from the audience, and you and I can answer those questions. But when you look out of the audience, by the way, can we hear you, audience? Can we hear it real quick? Oh, come on. Yes, people are going to think I'm a liar if I'm talking about recording in front of a live audience. Like, well, I didn't hear them. They must not exist. I didn't see them on camera. But no, what excites you? What excites you about this generation? As a professor, but also as an elder statesman, as someone that we look up to, right? And you're going to take your legacy and the torch that you lit with your colleagues, and you're going to pass it. And at some point, I'm going to pass it. What's exciting you about this generation?
Well, so I think it's always about impact and the impact I can have on these students. And I think a really great education only involves three things. It's not that complicated. One is, when you're here, it should change your perspective about something. You should be introduced to opportunities or ways of thinking that you did not consider before. It should open your world in some ways. Okay, that's number one. Number two, it should help you to make good choices about your career, what you want to do, not what you want to be, and your life. And third, it should give you the confidence and skills to know that you can compete with anybody anywhere. If you got those three things, you got a really great education. Now, there's a couple of ways in which your world was different than my world. So one of the things I tell students all the time is, don't listen to your parents about this. Okay,
that's good advice.
They entered a really different world than the world that you're going to live in. So Dustin mentioned that I was the idea behind the exchange. And the exchange really exists only for two reasons, quite honestly. So my job isn't so much about what goes on in the building. I have people who do that. Okay, my job is largely to think about what the College of Business should look like 5 years from now and 10 years from now and how we're going to get there. And the only way that I can do that is go out and spend a lot of time talking to people who think they're inventing what that world is going to look like going forward, and try to understand what motivates them and where I think they have a point and where they're just sizzle, to say something that you had mentioned before. And I probably meet a couple of people a month who do something and make a very good living at it that I didn't even know existed. Okay. And I want to bring as many of those people as I can for you to see. Business schools have a really large organization bias. I would say the thing that we're best at is helping students get really safe jobs in middle corporate America.
That's general.
That's sort of why
businesses across the country.
That's sort of why we were invented.
Okay.
So like the MBA was originally designed to get engineers their first job in management because they didn't know how to manage people and they didn't really understand finances.
And they still don't.
Yeah, that's still a problem. That's totally true. But today's world offers a lot of opportunities outside large-scale corporate kinds of jobs. So in the time that I've been in the business, probably one of the greatest changes is the number of students who want to start their own business. Like when I was an undergraduate, I didn't meet anybody whose goal was that. Yeah. Now, understand, I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, near Detroit. They all wanted jobs in the auto industry, right? They paid really high. But that today is a career path that many more students want to pursue them was true then. My marketing department, or any marketing department in the country, can give you all sorts of advice if you have a $10 million a year marketing budget. If you have a $10 marketing budget, not so much, right? So opening people's minds involves showing them opportunities that they may not have considered. The other thing that's really true, so we encourage you a lot through the professional development courses to have a plan, to have a career plan. That's a good thing, okay? You should remember Mike Tyson's quote, right?
I love this. Go ahead.
The plan never survives contact in the enemy, right? You have a plan going in the ring until you get punched in the mouth.
Yes. Yeah, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Right?
Yes.
And the data shows me you will get punched in the mouth. So back in my day, again, one of the reasons you wanted to get into GM or Ford, besides the fact that they paid really well, okay, was they planned your whole career for you. They didn't just hire you for the job they wanted you to do today. They knew where they needed you to be 5 years from now, and 10 years from now, and 15 years from now. And they were help developing you along the way. You know who does that now? You do. The average American changes jobs 9 times by age 35. Now, a number of those are crappy pizza delivery jobs that some of you have right now, or DoorDash, or whoever it might be. But the point is, the number of you who are going to go into an organization and work for that same company doing the same thing for the next 40 or 50 years is zero.
You know what I see when I look out at these 100 students? Hustlers. Like, probably when I look at this generation, compared to even my generation, right? Because my generation came after your generation. And in a good way, I see 100 hustlers because they grew up in a world of the gig economy, right? I look at future entrepreneurs, and it's a lot to what you just said, Dr. Jarley. And a lot of that is study who owns the businesses right now. They're boomers, like legit boomers. I'm a pretend boomer. I'm a boomer to my kids, but really I'm not. Like, I'm on the border of being a millennial or Gen X.
Yeah, I'm
right?
a late bloomer.
I'm
a late boomer.
And you're a late boomer.
Yeah.
But boomers own nice companies that pay really well. Those companies could be plumbing companies, cabinetry companies, laundromats. Right? These are really good companies that you all, with your marketing degrees or your accounting degrees or your business degrees, could one day purchase, and that's your career. Your career is a career of an entrepreneur, and that wasn't even me sitting in these seats 20 years ago. We weren't hustlers. It was rare to find someone who was trying to drop ship something, who was working on some kind of a side hustle. And as I get to know you all, whether it's through the mentorship program here at UCF or when I bring you on as an intern, which I was able to do last semester, what impresses me most is that hustler's mentality. Like, I respect that. One thing that you said that I really want to hammer home, because you talked about the exchange. So we're in the exchange. We're at the University of Central Florida. It's Dr. Jarley's brainchild. It's a place, for those that aren't watching this on YouTube, it's a place to bring in outsiders to connect with these students. Okay, that is what the exchange is about, exchanging ideas, it's exchanging contact information. But what I have learned in my career, if there's one piece of advice I could give to all of you, and you may want to write this down, and it's a little saying or a little ism, and it goes like this: your net worth is the sum of your network.
Totally.
Right?
True.
Your net worth is the sum of your network. So if you want to make a lot of money, make a lot of friends. If you want to have a very successful business, do a lot of favors, even if they're for strangers, even if they're true favors that you're not getting paid on, because there may come a time that you're ready to cash in that favor. There will be times where people that you forgot about didn't forget about you, and they come calling to say thank you. And that thank you may be very well a partnership that allows you to level up whatever business it is that you own or whatever business it is that you're in. And you hit the nail on the head when you talked about having many conversations and how every month you have at least 2 conversations where you're like, mind blown, didn't even know you could make money doing that. This was off camera, but I'll repeat it on camera. When I introduced myself, I talked about this show being called the Loan Officer Podcast and how I hate the name because it's not what it's about. It truly is about inviting people into the room where it happens, if I want to quote one of my favorite plays, Hamilton. And it's about teaching the ish that they didn't necessarily teach us in high school. And not every colleges have programs like this and institutions like the Exchange where we can do what we're doing. And what I have picked up on throughout all of this is I have to meet as many people, ask as many questions, because when I was a loan officer, that was my job. Meet people, ask them questions. And what I got to do is see other people's credit reports. I got to learn, and some of you might not know this, Dr. Jarley does, there's this saying called keeping up with the Joneses. I learned early on, I don't want to keep up with the Joneses because they're maxed out on credit card debt and they don't pay their bills. Now, they look awesome on Instagram when they're going on these fancy vacations, but they're not paying their bills. Then I got to meet some really awesome people that were younger than me that maybe didn't grow up as fortunate as I grew up, and they had more than I did. And I was like, damn, how'd they do that? So for me, I got to meet for a living. For the first 10 years of my career in the mortgage industry, I got to meet people. And every time I did, all it did was expand my horizons. Every time it did, it allowed me to think, why not me? Or it forced me to think bigger. And I loved hearing it from you because I think you represent academia and I kind of represent the street.
Yeah.
And that's a great and sometimes deadly combination. One last question for you, and then we're going to keep talking.
Yeah.
But I've had my fingers crossed, by the way. Y'all can see them right here because there's something that I wanted to come back to. If you're ever looking for a cool little hack of like how to remember something, for me, I crossed my fingers and it forced me to come back to it. You said there's 3 things that you wanted to make sure you shared when you're looking out to the audience and this the future of the business world. And I think it was the second thing that you said, and I want you to expound upon it.
Okay.
Really for me selfishly, but I think for them, because I'm pretty confident it's going to be insightful. You said something about figure out what you want to do.
Yeah. Not what
you want to be. Okay, this is, I'm assuming, I don't know his answer. I'm assuming it's going to be powerful and something that we're going to want to really listen to. But can you expand upon that thought?
Yeah, sure. So students, I think, are taught really early to focus on what they want to be. They have a major, right? And so a lot of times after Welcome to the Majors, which is a big event we have here in the college, I will stick around and ask students, right, what they want to do. And the number one answer I get is I want to be a financial analyst. And I will look at them and I will say, so what does a financial analyst do? Right? And they look down on their shoes and they think this is a trick question. So the answer I get back is analyze finances. And so then I say to them, well, if you wanted to know what a financial analyst actually really does, how might you go about doing that? Right? And the answer I'm trying to elicit is, I might want to go talk to a few financial analysts about what their day's like. Right? Because the reality is you're going to be chained to a computer staring at Excel spreadsheets. If this turns you on, that's a job for you.
Nerd.
Right? The other thing is financial analyst means very different things in different organizations. So the best thing to do the other 2 things, there's talking to people about what they do. And then there's getting an internship to see if you really want to do that. And there are 2 kinds of really awesome internships. Oh my God, I found exactly what I want to do. Or, oh my God, I don't ever want to do this again. See, Dustin found that a little later than I would have liked him to do. If he had sold those ads locally earlier, he might have figured that out. Because the worst day I have as a dean is when I'm meeting an alum who's in their 40s, who has kids and a significant other and a house payment and hates what they do. That's a really bad place to be. Now, I will say your generation, to come back to something Dustin said before, I would describe it this way. I think you have more choice about the kind of career you want to have than was true for my generation, or even maybe yours coming out. There's a greater diversity of things that people can do and that they can monetize in order to be successful. Barriers to entry are a lot lower. I don't want to get too technical here. But you've got to kind of get yourself and your hands dirty. So I think the best thing you all have going for you is that scope of options. The thing I worry about most, though, and this is not I want to make it really clear here, this is not a political statement, but people get, during their formative years, they remember the bad things that happen. Because as humans, we want to avoid negatives. This is what our brain from being back in the savannah, right, was trained to do for survival reasons. And for most of you in this room, a really bad thing happened a few years ago called the pandemic. And one of the things the pandemic did is it taught you that the world was a really scary place and that you should hide behind your couch for a period of time. If there's one thing I would say about students since the pandemic, you are far too timid and far too risk averse. Like, legendarily so. When students came back, the other problem is that when students came back from the pandemic, you've all been to the testing center, which I'm sure you love. But I have billions of data points on you. I'm not exaggerating here. Your test scores were down 20% when you showed back up to campus. You are behind academically and you are behind socially. And that's probably going to be true for a decade. And we are trying to do everything we can to speed that process up. Okay? And to make up for that, you're going to have to take a few more risks and put yourself out there even more and learn even quicker than you did before. Because that's the only way you're going to make that up.
I love hearing that. And I am a parent, right? I have a 16-year-old, I have a 19-year-old. My wife and I were high school sweethearts, so we got started early. And by the way, I don't recommend that. It worked out really well for us, but it's not really my recommendation. Like as a parent, I literally say you have until about you're 26 to kind of grow up and figure stuff out. And even then you don't have it figured out. But at that point, you should have some kind of a direction. You made a comment about internships. Sidebar, 5. I had 5 internships while I was here at UCF. All 5 taught me the same exact thing. I don't want to do that. That's what they taught me. I'm talking like any country music radio fans. Like I interned at K92. I worked for, interned for NFL Europe back when that was a thing. And that was kind of like the G League for the NFL. It was called NFL Europe. And I did an online interior decorating magazine. And I had all these really quote unquote cool internships. And they all taught me what I didn't want to do for a living. It helped me get pointed into sales.
Yeah.
And then from there, I learned sales. Once you learn sales and you learn marketing, y'all, you can sell just about anything. And that's where you can become an entrepreneur. That's where whether I sell life insurance or I sell homes or I sell buildings or I sell fine clothes for, I think they're up on the wall, Tom James.
Yeah.
Like I learned how to sell. Then I took my sales skills and I just happened to fall into, okay, I'm going to do home loans and that's what I'm going to sell. But when I, as a parent, look out where we as parents maybe failed them, A, we were too nice. B, we coddled. We didn't force you to not watch your iPad when we were at the restaurant. We didn't force you to order your own food. We didn't force you to go and ask that department store clerk where you could find the shirt in your size. We did it for you. We thought we were doing good by you. No, we were doing bad by you. And we let you get phones way too early. We let you get on social media way too early. Then we didn't take it away from you. That's our fault. But y'all have that opportunity now that you are at least legally grown-ass adults yourselves. Y'all can start making those decisions to make yourself uncomfortable because we only grow by being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Like that's a life coach, that's a sales coach talking. That's not the podcast dude. And it's also a dad talking. It's a
truism though.
So I was in a way saddened to hear the statistics, the billions of data points that you all have, but in a little way satisfied because it just reinforces that I'm not crazy or I'm not as crazy as I maybe thought I was. I'm a little bit crazy, but I'm not that crazy. And this is an opportunity for the students, the future leaders to hear that. You're like, all right, cool. I'm going to make a change.
Yeah.
So I love that. When you're ready, unless you want to add to that, I do want to jump into a little bit of data analytics and fintech before we have to wrap it up.
One last thing there. So the value of talking to people, particularly people who are different than you. Okay. I blog regularly, and one of my favorite but least appreciated blog posts is entitled, "Your Friends Are Redundant." Okay, so Dustin told you the street version of something that there's actually a lot of science behind. Okay, this is called social network theory. To simplify, you've all heard the old saying, it's not just what you know, but who you know that matters. Yes, that's actually true. Okay, and there are certain shapes to the patterns of who you know that really matter there. And sometimes it's a person you haven't met in a while who's an asset to you in a setting. So developing that network purposefully is really important. The problem with your friends is they're all like you. They all think like you. They all have the same assets and access to the same information that you do. They are not helpful from that regard. So one of the things that most influenced my thinking as a dean came from an interview on Mike and Mike in the Morning with Gary Player. So Gary Player was a famous golfer. I don't golf at all. I couldn't even identify 3 golfers in the lineup, quite honestly. But he had written a book on the mind of a champion, and Greenberg asked him about it. And he said this. He said, I would get up every morning and I would look myself in the mirror and I would say, you're going to make some bad shots today. And you're going to make some bad shots when Tiger Woods, if you know who he is he's a really great golfer in his day, is on the 18th hole and sinking a birdie and everybody is cheering. And he said, you know why I would do that? Because then when the bad shots happened, they were no big deal. My recovery from those bad shots was much better. And I literally jumped out of my seat and said, that's genius. Right? Your parents, love them as you all should, right?
They're great people and they tried really hard.
And they've tried really hard to make sure that you never fail. That's just not really how the world works. You know, my team will tell you that the one thing I never do is panic when everybody's running around, because everybody, you know, thinks we're going to implement all these things and they're going to go off without a hitch. Well, that's not really how it works, right? If it all went out without a hitch, it would be really easy. They wouldn't really need me, right? So what's really important is learning how to recover from those sorts of things and not freak out. And the younger you are, look, the more time you got to make it up. So right now is the time in your life. You're already eating macaroni and cheese, most of you, right? So taking a few risks now is really easy. Again, when you got that spouse and that house and a bunch of kids, that's a lot harder. So now's the time.
Yeah, I love what you said there. And in our next session, if you're able to stick around, it's this basically Q&A. I don't know how much time we're going to have for Q&A, if at all, but a question that I get, and I'm fortunate. I get to travel the country from Spokane to Key West, everywhere in between. I was Friday in Kansas City, yesterday in Tampa, tomorrow in Fort Myers. Scottsdale is next on the agenda before I go all the way up to Cedar Rapids, Iowa in May. Hey, and normally when I do...
It's going to be beautiful there.
It will be beautiful there, yes. But normally when I do that, people put me on panels or on stages, or maybe they even give me a mic and I get to give a keynote speech, but the questions are pretty predictable. Mm-hmm. So a lot of questions that are pretty predictable. One of them is, how did you get to where you are? Right? Like, because I have done a little bit better than just being a mortgage loan originator in my career. And I now have, you know, couple businesses, a couple of them do well, a couple of them are still figuring it out. And my answer is simple. I made more mistakes than my peers. I made them harder, I made them faster, and I made them in abundance. And if I had any advice to anyone who's trying to get ahead, go make a bunch of mistakes. Like, count your mistakes. Be proud of your mistakes as long as you're competent enough to learn from them. And again, this will probably come up in the 1 p.m. session that we're going to do with the next group of students, but it correlated to what advice you just gave. Mm-hmm. And I just figured, you know what, if I have the mic and I have the stage, I might as well give these people maybe a little bit of advice that a couple of them had come from. Mm-hmm. On that note, I do want to maybe close out with, I love data analytics. I fell in love with data analytics first when I watched the movie Moneyball. Second, when I read the book Moneyball, and then looking at how we use them in the business world. And then when I think of data analytics and I think of artificial intelligence, which was kind of how we kicked this entire episode off, what is the academic world doing to take, what's UCF doing? What's the College of Business doing, right? The second largest public university in the country. What are y'all doing to forge programming with accounting and finance?
So I'm hiring different people than I used to hire before, right? So now I have hired some PhDs in computer science and tenured them in the finance department. I have data analytics people who come from math backgrounds and stats backgrounds, actuarial science backgrounds, In fact, to that point, my daughter got her degree in actuarial science. She does data analytics. She did it for Netflix for a number of years. Now she's with Airbnb.
I'm glad she's doing fun stuff.
Yeah.
Because any actuaries that I know, all they do is predict when I'm going to die.
Yeah. So
they work for life insurance companies, and that's what they do down to like the day. They're like, oh, that guy right there, born 32750 in 1978, he's going to die at 79 years old in 200 days.
So here's something that might really shock you. Like, you think that when you see television shows or things on Netflix or whatever, that, you know, there were a bunch of guys and women in the back room smoking some weed and coming up with this stuff, right? Yeah, that's not how that works at all. So one day, my daughter...
Don't tell that to my producer, John Coleman. That's how his job goes.
So one day, my daughter called me and I said to her, well, Maggie, what are you doing tomorrow? And she said, I'm meeting with Jerry Seinfeld.
This is your daughter?
Yeah. And I said, so why are you meeting with Jerry Seinfeld? Well, she said, I think I have some ideas on how to improve his comedy. I said, really? So it was like Netflix getting into the, you know, consulting operation with comedians? Well, kind of. She said, but, you know, we're trying to sign him to another show. And so last year in his last show, I convinced the senior team to put a rewind and fast forward button on his show. So I can show him where people thought that joke was really great and rewound it again, and where people went through it. And I can tell him that joke worked in Texas, but people in New York didn't like it at all.
Wow.
She could show him heat maps of his jokes and whether they were well received or not. And she sent me a picture with him standing in front of one of the heat maps. Okay, look, most companies are looking for one of two things. They either want someone who's really good with people, okay, or they want someone who's really good with numbers. Okay, that'll get you in the door, and that'll get you a decent job. If you want a really great job, you need to be good at both those things. Okay, so it's really good to be good with people, but if you don't have anything useful to tell them, you're not that interesting and important to them. Simultaneously, I know a ton of people that are really great at numbers who couldn't communicate a thought if their life depended on it, right? But if you can do both those things, you can write your own ticket.
You know what's awesome about this? So Dr. Jarley and I do not know each other that well, right? This is our second time meeting. Okay, and we're a generation apart. So it's not even like we have that much in common in terms of like how our upbringing was or our childhood, right? But he's raised children, I'm raising children. I have a 19-year-old. Keep on looking out thinking he may be in the audience, but he's not here. Maybe he's going to show up to the 1 o'clock one. I hope he doesn't. Probably make me nervous to have him there. But nonetheless, I have told him since he was 9, 10, 11, very similar advice. And it's not because I have a PhD in anything. I mean, I have my bachelor's degree and I have a lot of world experience. But here's what I told him. I don't need you to be the smartest of the nerds, but I need you to be able to hang with the nerds. And I don't need you to be the best salesman or the best presenter or the best storyteller, but I need you to be an above average communicator. And if you are money motivated and you want to have success in the business world moving forward, it's going to be that technical person who also can proactively and effectively communicate.
Yes.
And you tie the two together and it's deadly. You all have rubrics probably, right? Yes. You sit down, especially if you go back to your gen ed and you're looking at like English 1 and you had a rubric that was laid out. Like, yeah, I don't need someone to be a 10 out of 10 technically or a 10 out of 10 in communication. But if you can be a 7 and a 7, that together makes a 14, and 14 is better than 10. And that was advice I've been giving him as I try to go from dad to mentor, which is always a really weird phase in life. Like I'm trying to be less dad, more mentor. And he's fortunate that he's had me in his corner because I didn't have that when I was I was his age. But I loved hearing you say it because, again, it's something that made common sense to me is obviously there's academia behind it or research or data or science. So I follow the science. Mm-hmm. Let's do this. UCF does have a master's program in fintech. Mm-hmm. I think this is freaking amazing. Are we one? I say we as if I work here. No, but I'm an alumnus and I'm a supporter, so I'll say we. I'm rocking my UCF gear today. Are we one of the first or one of the only institutions, or has this become pretty common?
No, we are one of the first ones. In fact, we're the only one that we can find that is a joint degree between finance and computer science. We're the only one in the state. And we might be the only one in the country that has that combination. And I will tell you that's kind of tricky. And you'll get this challenge as well. So it may shock you that finance people and computer science people really don't speak the same language. So for the first year in the program, just getting them to understand each other and what they were talking about was a bit of was a bit of a challenge going forward. We're increasingly solving that problem. I think there's still the challenge of financial technology is a really big thing, right? Meaning it incorporates a lot of different stuff. And so trying to understand where the center of that is going to be and where most of our students are going to start their careers, whether it be in pay systems, traditional banks, entrepreneurial situations, cryptocurrency, whatever. Okay, so some of those are more sexy than others. Usually the jobs aren't in the sexy things, at least not initially. Working through that and trying to understand how to train those students and place them. The other big challenge in that is that world is moving really fast. So those students are going to be almost obsolete 5 years from now. So just making sure you're delivering something that's going to make them of value tomorrow is really important. Here's the one thing most people get wrong when they interview for a job. I want to leave you with this. It is not about you, it's about me. I'm going to repeat that. It's not about you, it's about me. You need to be the solution to my problem. Everybody who meets with me wants a job. That's not a reason I give one. Right? It's you need to convince me that you are the solution to the problem that I'm trying to solve. So for those fintech students, they have to be articulate enough to talk about the problems they can solve. Right? And on occasion, people come to me with a solution to a problem I did not know that I had. That happens, but it happens pretty rarely, I would have to say. So studying up on that potential employer, that company, understanding what their needs are and what their problems are, and then being able to present yourself that way, that's the way you get a job.
If someone wanted to find more information on, especially the Fintech Masters, to me, like, that's sexy. Like, even for someone who, I barely got through college algebra. Like, the reason why my degree is in advertising and public relations is because I looked at the finance curriculum and I was like, yeah, right. I looked at the advertising curriculum, like, yeah, that's more my speed. And I still get excited about this, right? I'm super stoked that I'm a part of a university that is doing this at the master's level. Do you see yourselves doing it at the undergrad level?
Eventually, I think that will happen. I still want to learn some things at the master's level to see how those students are being placed in their roles. We do have a minor in financial technology now.
Okay. So at the undergrad level, I could get my degree in finance or my degree in accounting,
and get
a marketing even, and then do a fintech minor.
You could do that.
And if people are tuned in, because we have audience members. We have listeners and viewers, 32 different countries, the entire United States. 65% are probably mortgage and real estate professionals. 35% are others. When we go from 1 million downloads, which is where we currently are, to 5 million downloads, which is where we're trying to go by 2025, it won't be by growing this audience in mortgage and real estate. It's growing this audience with the students here and the people that came before them, because they want to tune into content like this, which is very agnostic to any particular institution. So for those that are tuning in that want more information, how would someone learn about the higher education offerings here at UCF, specifically what we're talking about, technology, fintech, et cetera?
www.ucf.edu.
That easy. UCF.edu. I didn't know if there was
a business in front of it, you'll get us.
It put business in front of it. And obviously, you're on LinkedIn. Is there a way that people connect with you typically?
Yeah, there's a variety of ways. I am on LinkedIn. You can find me there. We also have a podcast called "Is This Really a Thing?" I talk about new innovations and whether or not students need to know about it.
I love that. Is this really a thing? Is that Apple?
Yeah,
the whole kit and caboodle. Wherever you can listen to podcasts.
To bring down, I blog regularly.
How would I find your blog?
It's also on the website. You can link to it from there.
Well, I have to go to ucf.edu to get to
business.ucf.edu.
business.ucf.edu.
It'll pop up on our
and Dr. Jarley's blog. And what's your blog called?
I don't. It doesn't really have a name.
Okay.
I think it's largely designed to help students get the best out of their education.
Is it primarily students out of curiosity?
No, actually not. So this is funny about doing your homework. One of the unintended consequences is that when I meet people for the first time, they've Googled me and they've already read my blog. And I think one of the things that they're always surprised by is they think I have somebody writing that for me.
Yeah.
Right. And then they meet me and they think, oh no, that's really him. Yeah. Because I mean, one of the challenges I have, right? I mean, think about this. I have the same number of undergraduates in the College of Business at UCF as the entire University of Notre Dame does. I just don't have the football team.
Yet.
I'm also someone who believes the best education occurs when you get a chance to sit on a log next to somebody who has something interesting to say. There's 8,500 of you and 120 of us. We are hopelessly outnumbered. Right? So one of the ways we make sure that we have a lot of logs for people to sit on is this room. Right? We've thrown open the college to the business community and to our alums to come in and have important conversations with students. If anybody thinks they have an important conversation that they want to put in front of students, I would encourage them to contact Justin Barwick. You will find him on our website as well. He runs the exchange, and he will be happy to reach out to you and have a conversation about what you want to achieve.
That is a phenomenal place to wrap this up.
Come visit us.
Yes, business owners, business leaders, it's your turn to pay it back.
Absolutely.
So that they can pay it forward and come and do what we're doing and invest in the future of your country, the future of your industry by telling your stories and sharing your experiences. Dr. Jarley, this was an absolute pleasure. Unfortunately, these students have to get going. Our time is up. You have to get going. Y'all, he's Dr. Paul Jarley. I'm Dustin Owen. You've just tuned in to the Loan Officer Podcast. That is all the time we have for you today. But we do look forward to catching you on the next episode.